Welcome back to Investing in Trading Live, sponsored by Trading Academy. My name is Josh Lilquist. In the last segment, we got into the myth busters, the myths of the financial markets. And what were a couple of those myths just off the top of your head, Al?
Well, one was the asset allocation part of it.
Okay.
Not really realizing what true asset allocation is. A couple we didn't cover. One is that you have to take more risk to make more money. And unfortunately, people that have followed that asset allocation that Wall Street has recommended or that buy and hold strategy may find themselves in a position where they don't have enough, especially in retirement, to make it through. And unfortunately, a lot of those people end up taking on too much risk to try to make up for what they could have had.
Exactly. The key of the markets is to minimize that risk, and that's what we're going to talk a lot about in this next segment here. But if you missed part of those myths, definitely check out the podcast on Apple Podcast or any podcast where you listen, Investing in Trading Live. But we had a lot of people texting in to understand more about what are the opportunities with those as a trader or an investor that are showing themselves every single day. So if you missed that, simply just text the word investing to the number 210-210. That's text investing to the number 210-210 for 2 seats for an investing class. And I like how that myth is that people think more risk equals more money. It's the total opposite, because it takes... If you have one big loss, which means a big risk, you're done, right? You can't... if you want longevity in the markets, Al was discussing in the first segment, having odds and probabilities. That's how you build that longevity. So you have investment years and not just a hope strategy or a gamble. And if you think the markets are gambling and you're just buying and hoping, you are gambling. That's why you need a strategy with steps and steps that have been developed over 26 years, which Trading Academy has. So I want to discuss that in this next coming segment here, but I was talking about just some of the opportunities that are out there when you have strategies for up and down markets. And this is, I'm kind of talking through like a retirement account right now, because we have a lot of listeners, Al, that have 401ks, have IRAs, and they're just hoping that they have enough. They're just in that buy and hold strategy, because over time, the returns are pretty lackluster if you think about it. Now, just going back to 2021, the market dropped about 27%. So there's an opportunity to short the market as it goes down. That means profiting as markets go down. There's a 27% opportunity. There's much more up and downs as it goes down, but let's just take the overall to make it easy. And then there was, from the bottom of that, roughly about a 40% rate of return as it went up. So 40 plus 27 is 67% opportunity in 2 directions. That's just only 2 directions of the last few years here. And it started in 2021. That was the high to the low to the high. Now, if you think about that, if you're in a buy and hold strategy, that same duration, the market's only up 3.5%. So if you think about that, the difference between a 3.5% opportunity return or a 67% opportunity return, no one's ever going to get the whole thing. Just like the 3.5% that it is up right now, everybody's not getting that because they're paying fees. And there's things that they're missing out on. So the opportunities that are being missed with retirement accounts are tremendous. And that's why I feel a lot of people don't have enough to retire.
Great.
So you work with a lot of people here at the Academy that they see, hey, my accounts haven't done jack for many, many months, actually years now. And they want to do things a little bit different. They want to have a better opportunity. No one's ever going to get the whole return. But what if you got pieces of that as it's going down, and then pieces of that as it goes back up? What are some of the things that you're discussing in a lot of the conversations with people that are coming to these investing classes? What do they want to do, and then what are some of the opportunities that you have access to with a 401k or IRA?
Well, when you're going into retirement, either in retirement or getting close to retirement, time becomes an issue. You mentioned, if you go, in fact, I think in the first segment I mentioned that from 2002 until 2021, the average investor was only up 3.6%. And you talked about 2022, when the S&P 500 was down 27%. In 2023, the market came back, and people are feeling pretty good. But you have to remember that basically what happened in 2023 was just recouping what you lost in 2021.
Here's an example of that. You're at the casino. I'm sure a lot of people know how a casino works. And maybe you bring $500 and you lost $500. and then towards the end of your evening, your stay at the casino, you make it all back, and you're up maybe $5. You're at $505, and you say, "Boy, I feel good now." But really, you just wasted all that time. Maybe you had some entertainment, but had essentially zero return. So, but it made you feel good because that was the last thing that you did. It's very similar to golf. Everybody goes back and plays golf because they get that one tee shot
right.
on hole 18 that keeps them coming back. So, what are some of the things that people can do a little bit differently?
Well, one of the things that's really important is managing risk. There is always going to be risk in anything that's really worth investing in. If you want to try to achieve returns that beat inflation and beat any kind of fees that you have, you need to have decent returns. But in order to do that, you have to be able to manage risk. And what we would say is before you make any investment or any trade, know what's the worst case scenario. What's the maximum risk that could be achieved there, could be possible, and then know how to manage that. If you can't manage it, don't do that trade. Go on to something else. But that is the key. Every professional trader, everyone who has been successful in the markets will say that the number one thing is knowing how not to lose big. And when you get into your retirement years or close to retirement, that becomes even more important. You can't work 30, 40, 50 years and then have what you worked so hard for during that time period end up in somebody else's pocket. When you go into retirement, the income from your job is gone, so it really becomes important to know how to replace that income with something that can, pay for your cost of living and not just dwindle down or diminish the amount of money you have in retirement. Learning how to generate income off of what you have is critical. So I think there's two different ways of approaching the markets. One is for income and one is for your wealth and your retirement. There are different ways that you approach the market successfully to be able to do that. Income is probably the most important thing because that's what you're going to use to build up your retirement money while you're still working, because everything that goes into your retirement, your wealth, let's call it a bucket, comes from an overflow from your income bucket. So if you're not making enough, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, there might not be enough to put into your retirement.
Yep.
If you can generate additional income, then you can start filling that bucket. But again, in retirement, you need to replace the income from your job. We show you how to invest properly for that. There are assets that are ideal for income that you can use in retirement. And a lot of people, when they hear what they are, may say, well, that's too risky. It's not a risk. The risk really is in the investor. It's not in the investment. Mm-hmm. And that's because the investor doesn't know how to use the proper assets and how to manage risk properly. That's the number one thing that we teach you, and that's the number one thing you should learn.
Yeah, and it's a skill that's built. And just to go a little bit further, I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you guys, but I think it's important for you to realize what's being missed with those opportunities and what is actually out there to have an opportunity, right? So just to keep some simple numbers to that. So I was mentioned earlier, so let's just say an investor has $100,000 out. So you have $100,000 and the market went down 27%, right? So you can add a 27% opportunity for shorting that's there. Now, is anybody going to get the whole thing? No, I'm going to say no one probably did. But what if you got portions of that? But let's just look at the opportunity that is there. So we'll add 27% to that, which is $27,000 equals $127,000. Mm-hmm. So that's the math there. Okay. Now it was a 40% rate of return back up from there. So let's add 40% on the 127,000, which that dollar amount is $5,800. Okay, which brings it to $177,000 and $800. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the opportunity that's there. Let me show you the opportunity in just the buy and hold at that $100,000, and it was up 3%. Let's add 3% onto that. That's $3,000. The opportunity for buying and holding, that is the difference between $103,000 to $177,000. That is the difference of the opportunities of having a one-directional strategy. Right. And I know you illustrate that a lot more in these investing classes because these opportunities are phenomenal that are out there. But you got to build the skill. You got to have the knowledge first, build the skill to do that. That's what we train. We train people these different techniques, these strategies that have odds and probabilities in your favor based on market conditions. Because if somebody wants to be able to retire on their terms, it might be taking, their accounts into their own hands and doing it a little bit differently, having your best interest and learning those techniques and strategies that the institutions are doing every single day, which are actually available to us.
Yeah.
So if you want to see those strategies, we can illustrate this in more detail. We have a 2-hour investing class that we do here at the Academy. Al, you teach these all the time. I teach these as well. We're actually doing them across the metro areas as well. So we're coming to a backyard near you. Simply just text the word investing to the number 210-210, and that's for 2 seats for this investing class to get started. See what these opportunities are in the markets. Great opportunities and odds and probabilities in your favor. Text investing to the number 210-210 for 2 seats, or simply go to otamin.com. That's otaminn.com. Al, let's talk about more income strategies and more retirement strategies, because now is the time to get started with those. This is Josh and Al, Investing and Trading Live. We will be right back.